Hey, Jules Blessed Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So I've been talking about self-empowerment or personal empowerment, and today, this is part 4, I have an article called 5 Types of Female Empowerment. And if you're a guy, don't panic. Everyone has a feminine side. Tap into it. As always, I will include this article in the description of the video. So it says empowerment doesn't have a straightforward definition because it means something different to everyone. Kaushab Chandra Mandal wrote that female empowerment can be defined in 5 separate categories: social, educational, economic, political, and psychological. So number 1, social. Social empowerment might be one of the most prominent forms of empowerment shown in the mainstream media. It strengthens women's social relations and their positions in social structures, giving them more of a purpose outside of the home. Their contributions to society are recognized and valued as opposed to looked down upon simply because it was a woman's creation. Social empowerment also fights back against discrimination, no longer letting people of different disabilities, races, ethnicities, religions, or genders be walked over by what's considered normal. It's always so interesting to me. Are we confused, or would no man exist if a woman didn't give birth to him? Now, granted, we need the sperm, I get it, but still, what? How are you not honoring your mother? Okay, educational. Education is a crucial part of growing and developing, but there are still places in the world that deny education to girls. This takes away a fundamental skill everyone has a right to, which is knowledge. Without a proper education for all, gender empowerment isn't possible. Education puts everyone on equal footing and lets young girls have access to what their rights and duties are. Not only that, obtaining knowledge can boost self-confidence, self-esteem, and make girls self-sufficient. It also gives them access to the development of social, political, intellectual, and religious consciousness, and can discourage the growth of bigotry, narrow-mindedness, superstition, intolerance, and so on. That's powerful, isn't it? Economic. People say money can't buy happiness. That's only said by people who have money, right? But being at an economic disadvantage can take away access to becoming empowered. Being poor, landless, deprived, or oppressed doesn't allow access to resources that those in good financial standing do. Closing this gap would allow everyone to have equal footing, and women in particular would gain a more significant share of control over the material, human, intellectual, and financial resources. Political. Having a voice in politics can be substantial in letting a group's view be pushed into the light of mainstream media, and that's no different for advocating women's rights. The political involvement of women implies the decentralization of power and authority in the deprived, oppressed, and powerless people who have not been able to participate in the decision-making process and the implementation of policies and programs of both government and organizations, as well as familial and societal matters. In other words, having political influence would not only give a voice to those who haven't had a voice in how things are governed, but it would also allow the possibility of policies and programs being put into place that would work with these discriminated groups. And, that's just so true. I like being pushed. I don't unfriend people on my social media. I'm okay with them challenging my thoughts. I don't want to live in a vacuum where I'm never challenged and don't have to decide if I should change my personal policy or not. So I really do appreciate that. But when women are literally 56%, and if you don't know, anything above 50 it means more than half. When they are 56% of the potential voting population and they're not being heard, something is really upside down. Now, I am not a person who is into pro-choice. I recognize that as killing an unborn child. I really do. So I'm not asking for rights that way, but I do expect women to be honored and to be heard, as intelligent, as worthy, as their opinion counting. Yeah. Okay, psychological. Psychological empowerment aligns with social empowerment. It transgresses the traditional and patriarchal taboos and social obligations and lets women go beyond what's expected of them in society. This can build self-confidence, help women recognize their self-worth, and gives them the chance to take control of their income and body. See that whole body thing? I'm so sorry that women can't abstain from sex. I'm so sorry that at the very least, women aren't responsible enough to use some kind of protection. And I don't even promote protection. I promote values first and actually abstaining from situations, certainly outside of marriage, but that are going to put you in a position where you may become pregnant. Like, really? I mean, rape, and even in rape, it's expected that people not curse the child by aborting them, but carry that child to term, and if they can't love them, to allow someone else to. But honestly, I get the income part. I have trouble with all that body stuff, and I hate that women feel like they're victims anyway. Because again, is there anything more empowering than realizing that you don't have to participate in sex with someone if you don't want to? That you don't have to be irresponsible? Anyway, forgive me, I'm getting all righteous, but honestly, I just don't get that. Like, I had this one friend who literally had 4 abortions. She was using abortions as birth control, let's be fair. And finally, on the 5th, when she was ready to abort again, I begged her not to and said I would even take her child and pay her way through her pregnancy. Like, seriously, her daughter turned out to be the love of her life, honestly, the love of her life. Because she dared to do it. I mean, come on. What does that mean? Take control of their income and body. Your body is already yours. Respect it enough. All right, anyway. All 5 of these categories intertwine with one another, but it's equally important to consider them separately as well. Each group has different main goals they're aiming for, so trying to focus on them as a whole would be unbeneficial ultimately. Knowing what work has to be put into these 5 categories can provide a boost in the right direction and allow empowerment not just for women, but eventually for all. And when we think about that, first men, white men only, were permitted to vote, right? And then finally, so white men were voting from day one. Then finally, black men got to vote in 1870, right? Ironically, in New Zealand, with the Aborigines and everything else, in 1893, so only 23 years later, women were permitted to vote in New Zealand, which is very progressive. How long did it take for the United States? Oh yeah, 1920. Women could not vote until 1920. So wow. What is that? 50 years after African Americans and well after white men. But anyway, I do agree that any success, any opportunity for a woman is a shout out for more fair practices for all. That is for sure. But I also think if women continue to stand up, and I know the Me Too movement was a huge thing, and a lot of people did shout outs, hello, I was raped, I was sexually abused, but none of my perpetrators had money. And I could not help but notice how in that Me Too movement, so much of it became anyone going after anyone with money, anyone with assets, right? My people are dead, mostly. They're mostly dead. And even if they weren't dead, they didn't have any money or anything for me to take from them anyway. It was a lesson that was super unfortunate in my life, but one that I was called to deal with and grow from, and potentially ease others' burdens by saying that I truly had empathy for them. But honestly, I get kind of heated with all of that because I'm not sure. Like, God sees the heart. And some of those women have made it really ugly for the rest of us. Because I think it's unfortunate how quickly, when someone's been hurt, they want to double hurt the other people. Most of those men come from brokenness anyway, and I'm not giving them an out. But if we look back at their process, which, praise God, God sees all, we would have a better understanding of why they dare to do what they do. Some people are just evil. They don't start evil. God only creates pure souls, but the devil is real, and over time, some people own that, and some people are genuinely evil, and I'm sorry for that. But mostly, all of us are just trying to find our way. All right, so let's go back through them again. This talk went in a different direction for me. Sorry, you guys. Okay, so 5 types of female empowerment. Number 1 was social. And the belief is that in women being able to participate socially and having empowerment, it will help reduce discrimination, not let people be seemingly different, whether they're disabilities, races, ethnicities, religions, or genders, or walked over because they're not considered normal. For education, again, super crucial. And the whole idea behind that was that it allows people to have an equal footing, a chance to understand life on actual terms because they're capable of learning, and that it gives access to social, political, intellectual, religious consciousness, and discourages the growth of uglier things like bigotry, narrow-mindedness, superstition, etc. For economic, it closes a gap that allows everyone to have equal footing again, women in particular, who can gain more significant control over material, human, intellectual, and financial resources. For political, it challenges the norm by seeing different perceptions that are given by women, and it would allow the possibility of policies and programs being put into place that would work with discriminated groups. And psychologically, it reduces traditional and patriarchal taboos and social obligations, helps women recognize their self-worth, and I'll leave it at that. All right, I'd love to know what you think. Like if you like, join us if you haven't. Subscribe. I'm Jules with an opinion, blessed most of the time, and vegan. Have a good one, people, and best of all, know that you're blessed.